Our last presenter is Taiwo Afolabi. Taiwo Afolabi is an interdisciplinary artist researcher of African descent. With internationally recognized expertise in applied theater, focusing on social justice, human rights, decolonization, and anti-racism education among Indigenous, immigrants, and marginalized communities. Through global theater initiatives and publications, his practice-based research encompasses issues of public health education, sustainable development goals, African theater, entrepreneurship, and sustainability. He was the founding artistic director of Theatre Emissary International, currently the director of the Center for Socially Engaged Theater and a CRC in Socially Engaged Theater.
Well, thank you so much. Really happy to be the last person to talk. It's kind of to cut the pressure away, right? I want us to really just acknowledge all the diversity of the talks and the various research that we've heard over the past few days. And it's actually good to hear Professor David Gonor really presenting. Thank you for that. And I'm sort of going to switch the gear here to theater. So we started with art, and I'm happy we're sort of like full circle. What I'm talking about today is theater and policing. Black, Indigenous, and people of color youth in Canada speak out. But what I want to do is, before I kind of give you just a snapshot of this research, I want to give you an overview, or sort of like a panoramic view of what we do at the Center for Socially Engaged Theater. So in 2021, I believe, I think it's 2021 now, COVID, you lose track of all the time. Part of the mandate that I proposed for my Canada research here was to create a center that will take an interesting look using theater and theater broadly defined into different social issues. And that's the result of what I call Center for Socially Engaged Theater. So the center, of course, is housed within the Faculty of Media, Art, and Performance at the University of Regina, and is the centralized location for my ongoing research of my CRC. Three main things here that I'd like to highlight. One is that it's a research hub to explore issues critical to human ecology. And as I will do in my next slide for you to see the arrays of issues that we're focusing on, from justice, broadly defined, to policing, to cultural policy, to sector-driven project, to how do you communicate science and different things like that. I think theater, because of its affective nature, lend itself to really speaking about some of these issues, because a lot of the time it's a beautiful research that we're doing, but how do we communicate that? Many times it's at the level of dissemination, communication, that becomes quite interesting, that we have to find a way to engage that with different communities. The second thing also is the idea of a linkubator to connect people and ideas for intellectual and artistic engagement among scholars, artists, drama educators, and of course, community partners, policymakers, and collaborators across different sectors. And really, all of these stakeholders, we engage with them from all of them as listed. And that's because we always ask ourselves the question at the center in the work that we do, is that it's not just about using theater to do something alone, to speak about something alone, but we have to think about from the beginning of whatever that issue is, and I will speak to theater and policing as an example of that case study today, down to the policymakers. Because a lot of the time when we work with community members, whether it's an issue of policing or refugee experience, immigrant experience, or issues of climate change and all of that, the community would always many times want to speak about their experience and even give their recommendation. But many times it doesn't really get to the policymakers. So that's why it's important for us to kind of work across those levels. And then the last thing here is that CCS is envisioned as an ethical space, and the word ethics becomes very critical for us, especially when we're using participatory methods in engaging people's stories, storytelling, going to people's, hearing people's experiences, using that to create performances. It becomes, we're entering into territories that we have to constantly ask ourselves, not just only what we're doing, but why we're doing what we're doing and how we're doing them, so that we don't perpetuate all the systemic issues that we're trying to work against. And as a matter of fact, many communities do know they have an interesting relationship with researchers because, according to them, they've been over-researched, right? They've been misrepresented and different things like that. The objective of the work that we do, they're captured in these three ideas: to lead a range of projects that focus on theater and performance, and to initiate new dialogue on social justice and human rights, to create innovative artistic programs, and then the last thing here is to mobilize community ideas that would inform sectorial change. We'll try to ask these broad questions. In what ways can theater expose power relations and relationship and oppressive practices that dominant culture has normalized? More specifically, how can theater create safe and brave spaces to explore systemic racism, injustice system, particularly in policing, as I will talk about in the next few minutes? And really, by posing these questions, for me, it's really tackling ideas that are critical to our social interaction, whether it's identity, whether it's race relation, whether it's about membership and different things like that. So that at the end of the day, the people, the community that we're working with, working for, engaging with, that they really see themselves as really part of that. These are three things, and I'd love to just highlight the last thing there. Part of what we do at CSET is, for us, as much as we do so many things, and I will get into that in a minute, it is important for us to think globally, but for us to act locally and personally. So even with a lot of my trainees that are working with me and our community members and partners, we're always thinking about what a place-based narrative, where we are right now globally, but where are we here and now, and where are we individually? And I will talk to that in the example of the theater and policing. Praxis, I'm not going to go into that, but really about reflection. It's about practice. We go back, reflect, go back, and all of that. And these things can be time-consuming because it's about building really genuine and honest relationship. These are 5 research clusters that we've got and really broad, from theater, justice and policing, to theater and immigration, to decolonization, socially engaged theater and performance, to art, health, and well-being, and then the last one is on around creative economy, and that's really very sectorial-based work. So what I want to do then is to sort of use, based on all that I have said, I just wanted to pick this example of an ongoing project that that has been, it's really taken a lot of our time for so many reasons. Is that, first, when you're dealing with working with a subject like the justice system, the surveillance system, and narrow it down to policing, it's very tricky. It's tricky because it's sensitive. There are a lot of emotions attached to it. There's also a lot of history attached to it. According to the Statistics Canada, in the 1 out of 5 Black Canadians do not trust the police, and it's same thing for the community, for the Indigenous community. So, and that also because of history of Starlight tours, for example, for us in Saskatchewan, and the missing murdered Indigenous women and girls. And so these are historical realities that make all of these things really very critical and very sensitive. So these are the various levels of questions that this project is aimed at achieving them. Really, we're interested in better understanding the experiences and the perception of Black, Indigenous, and people of color youth in Saskatchewan. The method that we're using for this particular project is called research-based theater. It's really going to community devising and using that story, working on with that. And the process, community engagement, and it kind of goes to that fourth one. And I'm not going to go into that detail, but we're really at the first level. And what we've done with that is to create a series of dialogue to help us talk carefully with all the stakeholders, including the police officers, including the community members, and that resulted into this dialogue, this police dialogue and community. And it's a 6-episode, and we're done with that now. So the next phase right now is for us to then go into community and then get into their story, and we're in the process of creating what we call an audio play that will reiterate and speak about their experience, because we don't want to put a face to their experience. And with that, I will finish with this beautiful quote that drive my work. Thank you so much.